Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hello. Welcome. So today I am talking about the law of change or the principle of change. The reason I use the word law pretty often when I'm talking about spiritual principles is because if you have a dynamic that works in every situation, always, all the time, regardless of its size, small, medium, or large, microcosm or macrocosm, then it's consistent. It's a law. It's a way that things work, right? So here on Earth, we have this law of change. Everything changes here on Earth. It's just a reality of the world in which we live, right? So just looking into that dynamic for a moment before getting into how it works and how we can use it to benefit ourselves, we have to look momentarily at why I'm doing this podcast in the first place. Like, change is everywhere, right? It's just the reality here on Earth. Everything changes always, all the time. Nothing ever stays the same. Our car is going to be a pile of dust someday. So either short-term, long-term, everything always changes. So if that's a truth and it's a fact and we can prove it in countless ways, then you would think that we would live in accordance with that, right? We do not. We don't live in accordance with that. We don't live in alignment with the law of change. We resist it constantly in many different ways. And we've arguably created an entire existence on planet Earth attempting to deny the law of change. And what I mean by that is, if you are in a situation where everything changes, it's very difficult to feel safe, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen next. And you're on your own, right? This is our mentality about how we live in society. Our social conditioning has kind of brought us all to this place where this is how the majority of people live. And even the majority of people on the spiritual plane, or not the spiritual plane, but the spiritual path, when we drop into unconsciousness, because we still do drop into unconsciousness at times, which varies depending on the person and where they are on their path and all this stuff. So basically, to some degree, everybody does this, or at least 99% of the people do it. Probably, the majority by large. What I mean by that is we don't feel, we think we're individuals and we have to handle everything, and everything's changing and we don't know what's going to come next. So that incurs fear. Because as individuals, there are things we can handle and things we can't handle. Things that we like, things that we don't like. Now, many years ago, it used to be kind of on a physical danger level. So it was like, if you were just, if you could eat and you had a roof over your head and there wasn't a lion chewing on your leg, then you were pretty much good, right? Well, that's not how it's evolved over time. So now you have to have the right house with the right number of bedrooms for the children, and they have to be on the right soccer team, and they have to be in the you have to have the right car with the right interior, with the heated seats, and you have to be at the right job, and you have to shop at the right grocery store, and the food has to be just right that you're buying, or you have to have the right chef that's cooking it for you, or like it's all this stuff. And if any of that is out of order, then we're upset. Oh my God, do you believe this? Grocery stores out of broccoli. Oh yeah. What's wrong with them? We've made everything so consistent in an attempt to feel safe, and so predictable, so we can feel safe, so we don't feel like we don't know what's coming down the pike. And then if something comes down the pike that we don't expect, we label it as bad, and it's not supposed to be happening, and it upsets us. Right? This is all our separation from source. Like, so if we step out of this world into the eternal realm for a moment, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. We're supposed to be combining those two, right? So as spiritual beings, we're anchored into eternity. We're anchored into a power greater than ourselves that can handle anything, because it created the entire universe. So that's where we can derive our safety, because in the eternity, nothing ever changes. It's eternal. It's just, so it doesn't change. So we're not feeling, oh no, oh no, oh no. Like God's always there. Always. That never changes. It will never change. That makes me feel safe. And also that I'm not out here trying to navigate this myself, that I'm an aspect of the creator that created all this, and I am loved and supported. Then if I derive my sense of safety from that, from the eternal perspectives, from my spiritual side, and sit in my seat of safety, well, then I can interact with life feeling safe, and I don't have to try to control every little thing. I'm not going to get upset when when something doesn't go my way, or it seems like it's out of whack, because I know that it's not my system. Like, I don't have the perspective to judge what's going on. I literally just don't have the information. This is why I use the word prejudiced, because prejudice is a very triggering word, right? Most people don't want to be prejudiced. So if you look at that, what does that word mean? It means to prejudge. What does prejudging mean? It means to judge without having all the appropriate information necessary to make the assessment. So do I have the ability to know what's right and what's wrong, as far as globally and universally? No, I don't. I can't see into the future. I don't know the mind of God. I don't know all the laws. I don't know how this thing works and interacts. And I don't know when I think it was the creator of the artificial heart that, his father passed away when he was young, or was either passed away or had major heart problems. And it was this young boy who was very close to his father. And everybody back then, I'm sure, was going, oh my God, this is so horrible. This poor child has to go through this horrible situation with his father, and they're so close, and he's in so much emotional pain. This is horrible. God, why are you making this happen? If there is a God, why? We're looking at it. We're looking at things like in such a microcosm. We have no idea the plan. And then this kid grows up, and because of the experience that he had as a child, creates the first artificial human heart, and affects literally millions, probably hundreds of millions of people's lives not only the patient, but the families of the patients and the grandchildren of the patients and the friends of the patient and all this stuff, and the doctors and nurses that are helping this take place. And it's affecting hundreds of millions, maybe billions of lives for the better. And how could we have known that was going to play out that way? We couldn't. Right. So if we understand we simply don't have the information to make accurate assessments on what's good and what's bad, then we'll stop making those assessments. As long as we feel safe. If we don't feel safe, feeling safe is a foundation. Everybody wants to feel safe. It's an innate need within us. If we do not feel safe, there's incongruencies, there's conflict within us, there's problems, there's a seeking to try to feel safe, to try to manipulate and control situations so that we can feel safe. And this is how most people live their lives, and this is how society is structured, just to make things as consistent and predictable as possible so we feel more safe. And it's impossible. It's never going to work. I don't care how predictable you make things. We're human beings. We're unpredictable. And planet Earth is one giant change constantly happening. So we can't outsmart human nature. I mean, Mother Nature. We can't outsmart Mother Nature. We can't outsmart God. We can't, we think we're smarter than God. Like, we're going to come into this world and we're going to learn how to control things so well that we're going to overtake nature and change the very fabric of planet Earth, which is change. Good luck. If that's your plan to feel safe and therefore comfortable and peaceful, good luck. So this is why change is so important. Adapting to change is so important. Some of the aspects of it are letting go and trusting the unfolding. Like, we're going to make it. Before I woke up spiritually, I know other people have thought this, but I think I don't know that many thought it as deep as I thought it. Like, it really messed me up when people would tell me that things were going to be okay. I get it now, but back then, before I woke up spiritually, there was constantly some problem happening in my life, some catastrophe, some tragedy, some difficulty, something, and people would be, and I'd be so upset, and I'd be explaining it to somebody, and they'd see me getting so upset, and they're like, Glenn, it's going to be okay. And I literally didn't understand what they meant. And I think I'm a fairly intelligent person, but I just didn't understand what they meant. I didn't understand the concept in which they were talking about. Like, to me, I was so focused on the problem. Look, this is a problem. It's in my life right now. And this is what my experience, this is the window that my experience is going through. My experience is going through the window of this thing that is wrong, or that I'm perceiving is wrong. So, and it's affecting me in a way that I'm very angry and upset because this is happening, and it's not going to magically stop happening. I don't have a solution for it. So therefore, right now, I was so kind of like in the moment in a backwards way. I thought the pain I was experiencing, or maybe it's just because I experienced so much pain, that the pain I was experiencing, it was just going to go on forever. And if I forgot about this pain, then another one would come in. And it was just like, I just saw my future in pain. So like when people when people said it's going to be all right, I'm like how? What do you mean? You're going to fix the problem? Like, let's say it was a money problem. It's like, oh, so you're going to, so I'm going to get kicked out of my apartment and you're going to not let me get kicked out of my apartment. You're going to pay my rent. Well, no. Okay. Well, then how is this not going to last forever? How are things going to be okay? Because being okay means that this isn't happening, but it is happening. So what do you mean things are going to be okay? I had no forward thought. I had no long-term vision. I couldn't see that difficulties came and left and came and left and came and left for some reason. Seems fairly obvious to me now. But for some reason, I just didn't understand what people meant. It's going to be okay. I'm like, no, it's literally not. It's not okay right now. So unless you can give me a solution to fix this right now, then why would I disconnect from the upset that I'm feeling that things are messed up? If they're not messed up anymore, then I won't feel this way. But you're not telling me how they're not messed up anymore. You're just saying that they are messed up, but somehow magically they're not going to be, or something. I don't know what you're talking about. And I think sometimes, like that's obviously a warped type of thinking. And it actually might be a symptom of kind of almost in a way that I was trying to go deeper. I wasn't capable of it, but I was trying to go deeper. I wasn't sitting on the surface just going, oh, things come and go, things come and go. I was like, no, I want to understand the dynamics of in which things are going to be better. Like, and I wasn't capable. So I think on an unconscious level, a lot of people kind of do a version of that. This is why we get upset. It's like when things don't go, the grocery store's out of broccoli, and we're like, we're so used to everything being consistent and predictable that as soon as something isn't, it's, huh? So letting go and trusting the unfolding is a huge part of this. Another aspect of it is staying humble. So the ego resists change. It doesn't like change. Why? Because the ego's job is to keep us safe, right? It wants to try to keep us safe. So this is big surprise. The world is basically ego driven. This is why society and civilization is control driven, because the ego is all about control. Why? Because it's trying to keep us safe. It's a warning system. The problem is we've lost control of our egos. The ego is in control of us. So when the ego says, hey, watch out, there might be a problem here, or usually things are this way, but they're not in this particular situation, so that could be a red flag. Watch out, there could be danger. Instead of us using our mind and thinking like, oh no, ego, like it's okay that they ran out of broccoli. Sometimes that happens in life. It's not a problem. It's just sometimes things like that happen. We live in a never-changing world, so it's okay. And just telling our ego to be quiet. Instead, we believe the thought that our ego sends in. Something is wrong because we're out of broccoli. Oh my God, something's wrong. And we just believe it. When we start acting as if, and we get an emotional response because it's like something is out of order and I'm not in control. This is wrong. This is bad. It's like, whoa, nothing's, it's okay. So being, humility allows us to grow because we're not trying to control every little thing. So how do we grow? Growth is change. We're changing too. We're supposed to change. It's the whole point. I love that little meme with a caterpillar and a butterfly, meeting for lunch. And the caterpillar looks at the butterfly and says, "You've changed." And the butterfly looks at the caterpillar and says, "Yeah, we're supposed to." Like, that's all of us. We're supposed to change. Like, I still have the same personality I always did to some degree, but I've changed dramatically. And there were certain aspects of relating to certain people that I could do when I was the previous version of myself that I just can't do now. The connection has to either evolve or it kind of falls away, because I'm just not interested in the same things that I was when I was drinking. My mind doesn't work the same way. I still have the same personality. I can still joke around and be funny and enjoy time and all, and all stuff like that. But I can't connect over misery anymore and complaining and stuff like that. It doesn't make me feel connected with other people, which is really a main way of connection on earth between people, is they complain. And they feel this connection because they're like, "Oh, I complain and you complain. Oh, good." And and we're unconsciously scared that if we try connecting over happiness, then we might make the other person feel bad. Like, how are things going? "Oh, wonderful, blah, blah, blah. Everything's going great in my life. This is so good." And then, "How are things going with you?" "Oh, well, I just lost my job and my wife left me." "Oh no, oh my God, I shouldn't have said anything. I'm so sorry." We feel bad. It's like, no, my life doesn't have to be falling apart. So it's safer to connect over misery, is my point, in complaining. Because there's no risk of this perceived, "Oh no, I made their life worse because I'm happy," which is ridiculous. But so humility opens us up for change. We know that we're not the end all be all. We know that we don't control things. We understand that there's a flow of life and that we're not in control of it. So it humbles us to not think we're supposed to control everything in life. And that's an aspect of change. Growth comes from being open to transformation. We need to be open to change. We have to want to change. We have to try to change. We have to reach and stretch to grow. Like, we have to be doing all that for change to take place. If we're resisting change, then we're not going to grow. This is why a lot of people are trying to get like this unconscious desire and attachment to the external. What people usually think it is going to make them happy is if they get all their ducks in a row. That they're in the right relationship, they have the right amount of money, they enjoy their job, they have a good house, and they have their favorite foods on a regular basis, they have a good social life. Once all those things are in place, well, then I'll be happy. And until then, I'm going to complain and resist the aspects of my life that aren't going that way, or spend all my energy trying to get them to the place where I want them. Like, that's never going to happen, because you live in a never changing reality. So like, if you're lucky enough to get all your ducks in a row, one's going to wander off, or one's going to get stepped on, or something's going to happen where all your ducks ain't in a row no more. Like, that, guaranteed, 100% of the time. Why? Because it's a law of change. Everything changes. There's no escaping it. But we think if we have all our external situations the way we want them, then we'll be happy. It's never going to happen. Like, you might get all your ducks in a row for 15 minutes, but then they're going to be out of alignment again. And this is, I mean, I'm telling you, please think deeply. This is literally what drives most of our behavior, is to try, we're trying to set up our external circumstances to the way that we want them because we think we're going to be happy, and it's never going to work. This is why once we get stable on the inside, once we anchor in on the inside, once we can sit in our spiritual side, so our sense of safety and peace comes from our connection to source. Our connection comes from the eternal aspect of things. Our spiritual being having a human experience is where we're incorporating both of those. So we find our sense of safety and peace in the knowledge that we are eternal and that we are an aspect of the eternal creator, and that we are loved and supported and we can never be harmed and everything is fine. Not in a temporal sense, in an eternal sense. That's much deeper than the temporal. Temporal is just fleeting. We're here for a while and then we're gone. Like, I'm talking, I'm eternally okay. I'm eternally connected to love as long as I stay open to it. I eternally have the safety and the love and the protection and the guidance from literally the creator of the universe, because I am part of that creator and all its creations. So that's where I derive my safety. And then I can interact with life where everything's constantly changing and I don't take it so seriously. Here today, gone tomorrow. Yeah. It happens sometimes. You know, everything's a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Sometimes it happens for a reason. They're here for a little while. The reason takes place and then it's gone. Sometimes it's a season of your life. You experience something or someone throughout a season and it lasts longer and it's there, but then eventually you get the meaning out of it, the growth, whatever it was here to do, it's completed, and then that season is over. And then some things are a lifetime here, you know, like they last an entire lifetime. So sometimes, but we never know which, right? And even things that last a lifetime change. Like, even if there's does anything actually last a lifetime? I don't know, you know, like I'm thinking of a earthly perspective, and it's like, well, our parents don't usually last a lifetime, I guess, unless we died before they did. Then our parents could, and you know, and our siblings or older siblings, right? Then they might last a lifetime. But you know, just a normal lifespan of people, you know, your family can be with you maybe 3/4 of it or 90% of it, but at some point they pass on. So there's not, and then, you know, our spouse or our children, they come into our lives later. So whatever, does anything really last an entire lifetime? But my point is even those things that last what we would perceive as a lifetime, just, you know, if we don't think that deeply and just go, not in a bad way, just wrapping our brain around a concept, we go, oh, okay, you know, some things will last the rest of my life. Maybe that's a better way to phrase it. So even those things, like if you're married, like my parents have been married for a long time, I don't know, over 60 years, I believe. Like, I guarantee you their marriage and their relationship has changed dramatically over the years. It's, you know, there's probably been some good times and some bad times, hopefully more good, right? And I'm sure of it. And but not only the good and the bad, but the evolution of their relationship, how they interact with one another, the love expanding, you know, all that stuff, it all changes. So everything changes. And this is a good thing. We're supposed to be growing and transforming. Also, accepting change helps us be present, right? Because we're not. This is another thing that keeps people stuck a lot, is that we're so ego-centered, driven by our ego, that if we've experienced something 20 times, then we start expecting it to continue happening, right? And that's not necessarily true. Everything changes. It doesn't have to stay that way. I think a good example of this is money. It's like, if you struggled with money your whole life, and then you're doing the inner work to try to accept abundance and receive and just understand the concept of abundance and step into your divine birthright of abundance, like, you got to go, like, you have to deal with, at some point, you got to deal with this unconscious systematic belief system that you've created, that, like, oh, well, I was broke over here, I was broke here, I tried to make some money here, but it didn't work. And like, all your past experiences, you think that dictates your future, and it doesn't. That's the whole point of growth. That's the whole point of change. That's one of the blessings of change. One of the blessings of growth is things don't necessarily repeat. Just because they've happened in the past does not mean in any way, shape, or form that they're going to continue happening the same way in the future. It does not mean that. I drank for 20 years. If I believed that if I drank for 20 years, that meant I was going to drink for the rest of my life, then I never would have gotten sober. Now, don't get me wrong. When I was drinking, I couldn't perceive a life without me drinking. But I did need to be open to change. I did need to be, that's all. That's all we need, is to be open to the possibility of change, open to the reality of change. And then we see it happening and we're like, oh, yeah. Then we can lean on that. The fact that things change. It's really one of the techniques that I lean on when things are going wrong. If I'm going or my perception of wrong, if I'm going through a difficult time, I'll stop and go, well, a difficult time isn't going to last forever. I've been through countless difficult times, and they always change. At some point, I'm on the other side of it. So it helps me disconnect and allow the change to take place. Because if I'm holding on to it, no, this is going to last forever. No, I'm going to be miserable forever. No, this is going to be horrible forever. Like, that's hopelessness. That leads to depression. It's non-movement. It doesn't allow the nature of movement and change to come in. You're holding your energy stuck in this negative space. And it's like, if you're going through hell, don't stop and set up camp. Like, keep walking so you can come out the other side. If you don't like where you are, the worst thing you can do is stop or energetically hold on to it. You don't like it. Why are you trying to prevent change? Embrace change. Seek change. Be grateful that change is coming, because it is. The only thing that can stop it is you. And, you can't even truly stop it. You can pretend that it's stopped through your own perspective and hold on to your misery. And then, 10 years later, everybody's like, what's going on with Glenn? Oh, he shut down 10 years ago because of some traumatic experience. And he's stuck there. Like, oh my God, that's so sad. See, in a situation like that, we can see it. We're like, oh, that doesn't make sense. That's not right. That's not how life works. But yet when we're in it, People have a tendency to do their version of that. Maybe not for 10 years, hopefully, but the other thing is compassionate. It helps us be compassionate, because, this is the first thing that I learned, the first time I experienced frustration after I had all my spiritual awakenings, 20 years ago. The first time I experienced frustration was when people were like, I had blown open, and you could see it a mile away that there was something different about me. I was rearranged internally. So people were coming up to me going, oh my God, what happened to you? How can I get this to happen? Like, what do I do? What did you do? And I would explain to them, to the best of my ability, what I was doing and how it worked and all this stuff, and how I opened up and surrendered. And then, they'd be out, I was in recovery. So then most of my friends were too. So they'd be out drunk or doing drugs, a week or two later, or maybe, dead. And I'm sitting here and I'm getting frustrated because I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, these people are suffering. They're coming to me. They're saying, Glenn, what do I need to do to stop suffering? I tell them, and then they go suffer more. Like, they're not doing what I told them to do after they just came and asked me what to do. Like, it was frustrating. And I remember I laid down on my bed and I was feeling this frustration, and I just dropped into like this dissecting, meditative contemplation space or something. And I was like, okay, well, why are they doing that? Why are they not implementing what I'm saying? And I'm like, well, I don't know. It's like, okay, well, have you ever been in their shoes where people were giving you good advice, but for some reason you weren't able to take it in, or you weren't able to implement it or something? I'm like, well, yeah, that's most of my life. Okay. So, even 6 months ago, people were trying to tell me how to get sober and find peace and all this stuff, and I couldn't do it. Like, okay, so that's where they are. That's where they are. Like, they're just where you were 6 months ago. That's all. It's just, and hopefully, things change. You changed. You eventually got it. Hopefully they'll eventually get it. But you can't control that. You can't control whether they're going to get it or whether they're ready or not. I went, oh, yeah. Oh, okay. And that was really a foundational piece of me sponsoring others, and then eventually becoming a life coach and working with all kinds of people, because it's like I had to really understand that I couldn't save people. I couldn't control the outcome. All I could do was put information out, and what people did with it, and if they were ready and when they were ready, I had no control over, and to what level they implemented it and all that. So I couldn't let that frustrate me when it happened. Or if somebody didn't understand something I was saying, I couldn't let that frustrate me. I had to meet them where they were. So I had understanding for where people were, and I had compassion because I understood that things change and sometimes we're just not ready. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to be ready in the future. Yeah, and then the other thing, it's trusting the process. Trusting the eternal, knowing that things are going to come and go, and that eventually we're going to be on the other side of them, and it's all going to be okay. We have to, if we expect to live a peaceful existence, we have to be peaceful inside regardless of the circumstances. Now, I'm not saying that we can't get knocked around every once in a while. I'm just saying, as a general rule, walking through life, like, when I try to do my work as deeply as possible, and that means being honest with myself, deeply honest with myself. And I think we really need to work on that. Really, maybe that's another podcast. I'm going to jot that down. Being honest with ourselves. Yeah, what I mean by that is, this if I'm honest with myself, I'll give you a real life example. If I'm honest with myself, like there are days when I'm off center, right? I'm not feeling peaceful. And on those days, if I hop into my car and drive down to run some errands down by the beach, if I'm lost in the unconscious world that a lot of other people are lost in, then there's an aspect of trying to control my experience that automatically just drops in. And it robs me of my peace. If I'm honest with myself, I'm not deeply at peace internally. I'm actually in a state of anxiety. And I don't think people really realize this, because I know I'm not the only one that experiences it. But I'm able to be honest with myself where I go in and deeply understand what's transpiring inside of me and why. Right. So when I'm like, I bet you most people experience this. And yet, if I were with most people and I say, hey, that are just be unconscious, I'm just driving down the road with them and we're going to run some errands, and they're thinking and they're lost in their head, I'm lost in my head, whatever. And I turn to them and I go, are you experiencing anxiety in your body right now? They'd probably be like, no, I'll just drive down the road. But if they tuned in and let go of their thoughts that are transpiring in their head, turned off the radio so they weren't distracted, stopped thinking about what they were doing, and just ran a scan and monitored the energy inside of their body, they would find anxiety. I know that I do. And I know that I'm not the only one. So this is what I'll do. I'll be like, oh my God, I'm anxious. It wasn't so powerful that I was experiencing a bunch of uncomfortability or heart palpitations or nothing like that. I didn't even know I was experiencing it. I was just driving down the road thinking. And a lot of times the thoughts are kind of like, okay, what should I do first? Should I do this errand first or should I do that errand first? Well, this place is on the right-hand side of the road and I'm coming in on this way. So I'll just do them in order because that's the most efficient that way. And then I'll work my way back this way. That way I'm heading home when I'm going home. But this one's closed at the lunchtime. So maybe I shouldn't do it that way. And I'll I'll think of some of this stuff and I'm trying to control what's transpiring and come up with the perfect plan. And it creates anxiety with me. Like I said, not much anxiety, not where I would feel it unless I did a body scan. I could just be lost in that and not even think that there's anything wrong with me. But if I disconnect from it and I do that body scan, I'm like, oh my God, like all this thinking and trying to do things perfectly and lay it all out. And like, I'm actually making myself anxious. This is not enjoyable. So then I'll just release all that stuff and get myself to a peaceful, calm place and just go, why don't you just, you thought about it. Kind of try going in that direction. And you know what? If you see somebody, you want to talk to them, or you feel like stopping in somewhere, or you start getting hungry, or you'd like to stop for a coffee or whatever, then you do that. Oh yeah, okay. And then I relax and then I go about my day. But my point is like we can get lost. This is like everybody thinks that they have anxiety problems. Like you don't have anxiety problems. This is the type of thing where we're driven by our ego, which is constantly trying to look out for problems, which incites anxiety. So if we disconnect and we stop trying to control every little thing, and we get peaceful on the inside because we know everything's okay, like forever, eternally, and there's a flow to life, and it ebbs and flows and changes, and we're going to experience some things we like and some things we don't like. And when we're experiencing things we don't like, that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the flow of life or it shouldn't be happening, which is most of what people label it as. This is the cause of anxiety, is because when we experience something we don't like, we actually have the audacity to think that it shouldn't be happening. Huh? But how would you possibly know that? Like, so there's this flow to life that's been happening for billions of years, and like God's in control of it, and it's just there's a system in place, and a divine perfection, and all this stuff has been unfolding, but you in your little microcosmic experiential perspective that is completely different from everybody else's, right? Like that's one. So let's take God out of the picture for a moment and just go, like, isn't it arrogant for us to think, just like, we all know that we're individuals, right? We all know that like there are 8 billion people on the planet, and we all are individuals. So that means we think a little bit different. We've had little different experiences that shapes our thinking and our views. And we can agree on things sometimes, but very rarely are we going to see things the exact same way, because we're all individual. So when we're judging things like, oh, this shouldn't be happening, like, really? Like, like you understand the dynamics of planet Earth, the atmosphere, the sun, the moon, the universe, everything, because it's all connected, all 8 billion people, and how the butterfly effect is going to affect them in all these different scenarios. You know all that. And because you have all this information, because you know everything like the mind of God, then you know that this thing shouldn't be working. Like, it shouldn't be happening because it's wrong. But come on. Like, of course you don't. You have no idea. None of us do. So who are we to judge? Oh, because it's wrong. Well, says who? You don't know how it affects other people. You don't know if, most people grow through difficulty. So if a difficulty pushes somebody towards growth and they benefit from it, then was it wrong? If their life is, me being an alcoholic for 20 years and hurting myself and others, well, that's just wrong. That's just wrong. It shouldn't have happened. It's wrong. Well, no, because now all of a sudden, because of my experience, I was able to help others. Because of my suffering, I was driven to be able to open up and surrender to a level where I was capable of seeing life in a different way, in a way that's more natural and more helpful to other people. And then I could do a podcast and work with people one-on-one and in groups to help them understand a healthier way of interacting with life as well. So was the alcoholic 20 years wrong? Who would I be if I didn't experience them? How about the people that I've helped? Where would they have gotten their help? Somebody else, hopefully, but we don't know. No, they wouldn't have gotten help from anybody else if nobody else went through any difficulties that opened them up. And everybody goes through difficulties. So going through difficulties can't be bad or wrong if everybody goes through them. It's the ebb and flow. We have to get a more, this is my point about change. We have to get a more realistic perspective. We need to slow down and look at how we're interacting with life. And like, it's not rocket science to figure out why the way most people interact with life is dysfunctional, why it's unsustainable, why it causes suffering. We think that we are in control of life and that it doesn't change and we can prevent it from changing. Our whole design for living is based around trying to control our circumstances, and we can't. Our foundational way of interacting with life is severely flawed because it's based in controlling circumstances to make ourselves feel happy and safe. And we can't control our circumstances. And that's not where happiness or safety comes from. It doesn't exist on this plane. It doesn't exist in the temporal. It exists in the eternal. So we anchor into our spirituality, get our seat of safety, and then interact with life a little bit more playfully. And I'll wrap up with this. It's the movie theater reference. I always use this because it's just so appropriate. When you're in a movie theater, you can experience happiness, sadness, fear, laughter, all these emotions, right? That's why you go to a movie theater, to experience these emotions. They take you on a journey an emotional journey to feel different things. So we pay money to go there and experience this, but we don't dive under the seat if somebody pulls out a gun. Why? Because we're in our seat of safety. There's an aspect of our consciousness that knows that we are safe in our seat. And if we ever get too carried away in the movie and we get too scared or something and we start freaking out, we can go, whoa, wait, this isn't real. It's just a movie. It's just a movie. Relax. Oh yeah. Oof. Oh my God, I got carried away. I leaned too far into it. Oh my goodness, I was freaking out. Yeah, it's okay. You're safe. Oh yeah. This is how we need to go through life. In our seat of safety, with 10% of our consciousness or something. It's just kind of always there as a baseline underneath. We're safe. Everything's okay. It's eternal. It's peaceful. We're good. And then we can still interact with different things and we can still have different emotions. See, that's what our ego warns us of. No, if you think everything's okay, then you'll never experience any emotions. And that's not living. It's not what happens at all. You still experience all the emotions of living. You still get sad when sad things happen. It's just you don't get taken away and start thinking it's going to be that way forever or that there's something wrong with the universe. That's all. You don't start blowing up this something happens in an ever-changing reality, and then we latch onto it and start using it as evidence why everything is wrong and we're supposed to experience misery forever. It's like, whoa. No, it's just temporary. It's fleeting. Grief is something you go through. Difficulties are something you go through. Transitions, life, it's something you go through. It's not something you sit and set up camp in and you carry with you forever. We're supposed to go through our difficulties. We're not supposed to throw them in a backpack and carry them with us for the rest of our lives. Same with grief. Sure, there are some losses, speaking of grief, there are some losses that are so painful and so dramatic. Are there aspects of that grief that we can carry with us, perhaps for a lifetime? Sure. But if you're experiencing the same amount of grief 10 years later from a loss that you were 10 years earlier, then you're not going through grief. You've set up camp in grief and you're living in it. You're holding it there because that's not natural. Everything changes. We're supposed to be expanding and growing and working through and becoming better versions of ourselves. We're not supposed to be just sitting there suffering for decades. So the only way we can do that is if we resist change, if we block it from actually happening, because it happens naturally. It's just the flow of life. So, yeah, change is pretty important. All right, peeps. Thanks for listening. That's going to do it. I hope that helps. And yeah, that's it, I guess. Peace internally. Later.